Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Journey with Me podcast, where the journey is greater than the destination. I, of course, am your host, Holly Harris, your journey girl, helping you to manage the middle. And for you newcomers who may, again, be new to the channel, this is Journey with Me podcast, where we help you manage the middle. And it's just as the tagline says, right? I'm helping you manage the middle, the day-to-day life, the difficulties of life, that in-between period while you're on your way to becoming who you are meant to be. And even after you feel like you have become, I don't know if you ever necessarily fully become. It's always a state of becoming in my mind, right? There's always something to learn. There's always a way we can grow and get better and do better. And so that is my passion. That is what I love to do. And many of you might say, hey, what qualifies you to do that? Right? Well, first of all, just by sheer life experience, I feel as though I'm a student of life, just as you have. I have navigated certain difficulties, trials, tribulations, situations that I have navigated and come out through on the other side. And it is my desire just to pass the lessons on. Not only that, my work experience, right? I have a background in criminal justice. So I've worked with people in the system. I've had a plethora of jobs, right? I've worked in nursing homes. Again, I've worked with inmates, and just by sheer walking along with people that I have relationship with, I have developed certain skills where I'm able to help navigate people through life's journey. And so that's exactly what I'm here for. And hopefully, if you have been listening to the channel for a while, that's exactly what you're getting. You're getting direction, you're getting clarity. You are, maybe even experiencing light bulb moments. And so that is my hope, to do that for each and every person that comes across this channel. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being a part of this journey. With that being said, I wanted to just jump into today's lesson, and I wanted to talk about something that is a sneaky little sucker, right? And that is bitterness. Bitterness can be something that we can have and not actually realize it, especially if you are a productive person. If you are someone who just keeps going and going and going and going, you could easily have a seed of bitterness in you, right? Because you're the type of person that is able to keep a smile on your face. You're the type of person that's able to get things done. But in actuality, on the flip side of that, there is some bitterness. And so I wanted to talk about that today, and talk about some of the signs of bitterness, what could lead to bitterness, as well as ways that we can combat that if we find ourselves in that place, right? So, one of the things that can lead to bitterness is mourning. All right, and I'm not just talking about mourning in the traditional sense. I'm talking about mourning the life you thought you should have, right? We write down what we want to be when we grow up. We fixate on our dreams and our goals and the ideas that we had for ourselves. And by this time, I'm gonna be doing this, and by that time, I'm gonna be doing that. And there's a certain level of mourning that happens when those things do not materialize when we want them to. I mean, they still may materialize, but then maybe they weren't a part of God's plan anyway. And so there's a process of mourning that happens when that takes place. So sometimes if we continue to fixate on that life that we desired to have, that we don't currently have, it can lead us to a place of bitterness. And so another thing which is akin to mourning is disappointment, right? Or unrealized expectations. When we put our all into something, when we, do all of the things, when we check all of the boxes and we still end up disappointed, it can lead to a place of bitterness, and even our expectations that we had for ourselves, right? That maybe we haven't lived up to. Those things can all lead to a place of bitterness. Then another thing is entitlement, right? Entitlement is akin to all of those things because sometimes we can have this thought process that we're entitled to certain things because we have checked every box and we've dotted every I, right? And so that level of entitlement, when that thing doesn't materialize, can lead to bitterness. And of course, all of these things are kind of clusters. They, kind of run in packs. The disappointment, the unrealized expectations, mourning, entitlement, they kind of cluster in there together. And then, of course, we know one of the most famous ways that can lead to bitterness is that of having a broken heart, whether it be in a relationship, whether it be um, again, unrealized expectations or, desires that are unfulfilled. The word of God talks about how hope deferred makes the heart sick. But when the promise comes, it's like a wellspring of life. So sometimes when those things in our lives are deferred and they're taking longer than we desire for them to take, it can lead to a place of bitterness, right? So, what are some of the signs that we could be walking around seemingly okay on the outside, but literally have bitterness in our hearts, right? One of the signs is self pity, right? We can be, again, fixating on the woe is me parts of our life rather than fixating on the good things. And so self pity is definitely a sign that we could be that bitterness could be trying to take root in our hearts. So if you find yourself constantly in victim mode, it could be a sign that bitterness could be lurking under the surface, right? Another sign is comparison. When we're constantly comparing ourselves to other people, when we're looking at highlight reels on social media and we're wishing that we had the life that someone else has, that could be a sign that there may be some underlying bitterness trying to take root in our souls, right? Then there is jealousy and envy, right? That's akin to comparison, but I think what makes jealousy be on another level is that you almost dislike that you're not just comparing your life to the person. It's almost like you feel as though this person having what they have is taking away from your ability to have it. And then what can enter into that is hatred. What can enter into that is this sabotaging of someone else because they are, quote unquote, in a position that you desire, living the type of life that you desire. So jealousy and envy takes on another level because it's not just a comparison, but it's actually a fixation on the person that goes deeper, that can enter into hatred, that can enter into trying to even sabotage the person because you desire what they have so much, right? Another sign of bitterness is constant complaining. Job chapter 7, verse 11 says, "Therefore I will not restrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul, O Lord." And then chapter 10, verse 1 says, which is akin to it, says, "I am weary of my life and loathe it. I will give free expression to my complaint. I will speak in the bitterness of my soul." So we see here Job, of course, who has lost everything, who most would say, rightfully so, can complain about his current circumstance, illustrates here what bitterness in the soul looks like, right? It looks like someone who loathes their life and has given free expression to their complaint, who speaks from the anguish of their spirit, who doesn't restrain their mouth, right? And so this is what happens when we are walking around in bitterness. We are constantly complaining about our situation, right? It goes beyond the regular light complaining that we do, right? Someone is in front of you and they're driving too slow, or they didn't get your food order right, right? It goes beyond that. It's a constant complaint about one's life. And then another sign is anger, right? People who are constantly walking around angry, a scowl on their face, and you're wondering why, or you're feeling angry all the time, and you're wondering why you're so angry. There may be some bitterness that has not been dealt with. Then, which is akin to that, the next one is frustration, constant frustration, right? Then there's a lack of peace. When you're walking around in bitterness, right, you can't seem to find peace probably because of the constant complaining, right? But there's a lack of peace. When you have bitterness in your soul, you're not at peace. You're not relaxed in your present circumstance. So there is a lack of peace. Then, when that bitterness becomes full grown, it can turn into something else, right? Romans chapter 3 verses 13 through 17 read, "Their throat is a yawning grave. They use their tongues to deceive, to mislead, and deal treacherously. The venom of asp is beneath their lips. Their mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Destruction as it dashes them to pieces, and misery marks their ways. And they have no experience of the way of peace. They know nothing about peace, for a peaceful way they do not even recognize." Wow. And that's an AMPC. So we see here someone who is walking in bitterness is full of cursings. Their feet are swift to shed blood, and not necessarily murder, but that is a root of murder is bitterness, right? So uh, but the destruction is in their mouth, right? Misery marks their ways. So in essence, they sow discord, right? And they lead people to deception. When bitterness has taken root in a person, literally their life is to bring misery. Their life is to, because they know no peace, they don't bring peace. They bring discord, they bring deception, they bring destruction. And so that is why it is so important that we understand and we recognize the signs so that bitterness does not take root in our souls. So, what do we do, right, in order to combat ourselves from entering into a place of bitterness? Because let's face it, right? We live in this life and things don't always go our way. And so we have to find ways to combat the spirit of bitterness so that it doesn't lead us down this path that I just talked about. The first thing we have to do in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23, it says, "Keep and guard your heart with all diligence, and above all that you guard, for out of it flows the springs of life." We have to guard our hearts, right? That is the first thing that we have to do. And guard in that passage is likened unto a prison guard. This is literally the level of vigilance that we have to have with our hearts, that when we're going through certain situations and circumstances that we know could potentially lead to bitterness, that we are guarding our hearts so vigilantly that we are, you know what I'm saying, that if anything comes towards the gate, that we're able to recognize it. So literally this passage is saying we are to scrutinize our hearts just as a prison guard would do to a prisoner. And when you think about that and how prisoners, they can't go where they want to go, they can't eat what they want to eat, they can't do what they want to do. And that is the same way we have to approach guarding our hearts. We have to scrutinize them. We have to be diligent over them. We have to watch over them, especially when we're in situations and circumstances that could lead to bitterness, so that it does not take root, right? The next thing we have to do other than, of course, guarding our heart in the first place to keep those things from entering in, is honesty and confession, right? The Word of God talks about confessing our faults one to another that we may be healed. But even beyond that, confessing to God is so important because He already knows. And so we know that we are harboring anger in our hearts concerning an unanswered prayer, concerning an unanswered life, even, a life that we thought we would have that we don't presently have, or just whatever it is. We have to confess those things to God. Right? He already knows, and our honesty brings healing. Our honesty opens up our spirit again. Our honesty can take our heart of stone and turn it into a heart of flesh so that God can begin to work on us and draw us back to the right place. Right? And then we have to practice gratefulness, especially when we have been so fixated on what we don't have, on what we desire, yada yada yada, and all that jazz. We have to daily practice gratefulness, being thankful for what the Lord has done, being thankful for sometimes not getting what we desire to get when we desired to get it, because maybe we weren't ready for it. Maybe we didn't have the capacity for it. Maybe we didn't have the wisdom to keep it. Maybe we didn't, all of the things. And understanding that just because it has been delayed doesn't mean it's denied, right? That eventually we may, if it's the will of God, we will walk in that thing that He desires for us. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. So remember to keep your heart with all diligence. Be diligent about it. Watch over it as if it is in prison, right? Be honest when you have certain feelings, because God, He already knows. And lastly, practice gratefulness. Those are just some tips to help you on your journey. And as you may be experiencing difficulty, to not allow bitterness to take root. Because at the end of the day, God has been good to us. And so it's important to remember the goodness of God, right? All right. Again, that's all I wanted to share with you today. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button as well as that notification bell so that you can be notified anytime I drop a video. If this video was a blessing to you, share it with someone, right? And rate the show, right? Like, comment on YouTube helps, of course, the algorithm. As well as if you're listening to me audibly, you can go and rate the show, which helps to lift the show in ranking so that someone else can be made visible to this content, right? Go and like me on social media. I am at Journey With Me Podcast on Facebook and at Journey With Me Pod on Instagram. You can also follow me personally. I will also have that information in the show notes. Again, that is all I wanted to share with you today. God bless you, and until next time, peace.